Hi, I'm Chap Bettis, author of The Disciple Making Parent, and this is my audio blog, where I read some of my blog posts in audio format for your convenience. In today's episode, we're going to be thinking about an interview that TGC did with me. The title of the blog post is Faithful Parenting is Successful Parenting. And the writer, my friend Jeff Robinson, writes this: I've been a father for nearly 17 years, and the longer I try to parent, the less qualified I feel to give advice on raising children. To put it mildly, parenting is humbling. I'm also a pastor who is often in a position to counsel parents. I desperately need friends like Chap Bettis, author of The Disciple Making Parent. There seems to be an endless number of books on parenting, some excellent, some awful, and many in between. The Disciple Making Parent falls into the former category and is one of my favorites. Why? It's loaded with practical wisdom for parenting and focuses on two critical truths that we often overlook when raising kids. Number one, only God can make them Christians. And two, raising children in the fear and nurture of the Lord is most fundamentally about evangelism. Bettis's book, and I appreciate these words from him, deals with many thorny parenting issues such as the reality of prodigal sons and daughters, how to teach children about the world and dealing with the social media and electronics, explaining hypocrisy, and much more. He served as a pastor for 25 years in New England before founding the Apollos Project, now renamed to the Disciple Making Parent, to equip families for discipleship, apologetics, and worldview to help churches become more family-friendly. So Jeff asked me, why did you write The Disciple Making Parent? And this was my response. Well, I had the privilege of growing up in a Christian home and heard the gospel in church. I believe I genuinely trusted Christ around the age of 8. But I also had a bumpy transition to an adult faith. The hypocrisy I saw in the church, combined with my own intellectual questions, almost torpedoed my faith. Thankfully, the Christians at my secular college and various books on apologetics strengthened my faith. As a pastor, when Sharon and I were having our own children, we resolved to be intentional in passing down the gospel to our children. We had a number of good resources to help us with parenting issues, but none spoke directly and biblically to helping us disciple our children. If the scriptures are sufficient, and they are, then surely they speak to this issue. In addition, God brought a number of like-minded parents into our new church plant. And as we were all raising our children, we were searching the scriptures for wisdom in this area. As I started putting some of these ideas down on paper, they seemed to help other parents. The fact that we raised our children in the harsh spiritual climate of New England seems to resonate with parents today as our country grows increasingly hostile to Christianity. When I realized that I might be able to write something for parents, I prayed that it might be challenging but not guilt-inducing, saturated in timeless scripture without being distinctly American, and aware of how sin can affect the home in significant ways. And I'm thankful for the feedback I've received, even from those in different denominations and non-Western countries. Well, then Jeff asked me, you tie evangelism to raising children. Why? My response is the noetic effect of sin blinds us to many things. That's the inborn effects of sin, including the right way to view family and children. God doesn't just give us babies to raise. He entrusts us with eternal souls to influence. And this changes all of my parenting. The foundational scripture for parents is not Deuteronomy 6 or Ephesians 6, as important as those are, but Matthew 28:18-20, the Great Commission. The Great Commission is the mission of the church and undergirds my family's direction. Once I have that North Star to guide my parenting, I can make wise choices and stand strong in a culture that's pushing me in many directions. I think too many pastors and parents have separated kingdom life and family life, but God intends each family to be a Trinity-displaying, disciple-making unit. Understanding this truth changes everything. Jeff then asked me, once parents have understood this point, what myths do you think Christian parents still believe? Well, many good parents are tempted to believe that the perfect environment will guarantee that their children will walk with the Lord. And though we may not say it, our actions often show that we're thinking this way. But our children's salvation is not by works, not by theirs or our works. Discipling our children is not like making a cake, where you put in the right ingredients in the right environment for the right amount of time and boom, out pop perfect children. That's not reality. Our kids have real choices they have to make. But having been warned of this danger, we must make the other point with equal strength. God can and does use means. Our duty is to faithfully discharge the duties He's given us, leaving the results in His hands. Our job is not successful parenting per se, but faithful parenting. And the book, The Disciple Making Parent, lays out biblical principles that are true in any discipleship relationship, but especially for the children that God has entrusted to us. Then he asked me, if you could give parents one piece of advice, what would it be? My response was this: make sure you're living the gospel at home. The number one reason kids give for walking away is hypocrisy on the part of their parents or church leaders. Lo and behold, we see in the New Testament that the first way a spiritual leader teaches is through example. And our home is a stage where our children are studying our lives. When they're young, they're imitating us. And when they're older, they're evaluating us. So do they see a genuine relationship with the Lord? Paul could say of Timothy's upbringing that his mother and grandmother had a living faith. You can find that in 2 Timothy 1:5. And it was because of those examples that he followed the Lord. Then Jeff asked, what would you say to parents of prodigals? And I'd say your child's salvation is not by parental works. My own assistant pastor, whom I respect so much, tells the story of his deliberate decision to rebel as a teen. By his own words, his parents were wonderful Christian parents. And too many times, parents of prodigals feel shame and guilt based on a misunderstanding of Proverbs 22:6. We've taken that verse as a promise that if we train them well, then they'll not depart. Therefore, we think, if they depart, we must have done something wrong. Maybe there is real sin to confess on our part, but we must remember our child's salvation does not depend on our parenting. We cannot parent so well as to give them a new heart. I want every parent to know the incredible privilege and responsibility that they've been given to shape an eternal soul. Thank you for listening to the Disciple Making Parent audio blog. This ministry is equipping families to stand strong against the rising antagonism to the gospel. After all, what is more important to us than the souls of our children and grandchildren? But we can only do that because of people like you who support the ministry through monthly or special gifts. If you've benefited from this ministry, would you prayerfully consider becoming a monthly or regular financial partner? Visit thedisciplemakingparent.com/give. Thanks for listening.